Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. All right. Welcome to the August meeting of the Design Review Board.
Madam Chairman, could I exercise some, a point of past chairman privilege? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge the time we had with Jim Holly as our board attorney. And I'm going to read them because Jim always told me to read them and I never did. But you all, most of you know that Jim served the state, Jim Holly, grew up in my neighborhood, served the state very effectively at many levels, but I think he always considered Aiken his home. And he came back to work for both the city and the county as their attorney until his retirement to North Carolina. Retirement should be in quotes. When the Design Review Board needed legal advice, he responded and traveled to Aiken from his home in North Carolina many times in the past year. I wanted to thank Stuart Bedenbaugh and the City Council for making the decision to bring this extremely competent, well-mannered, humble, and humorous man to our side. Jim had just the right temperament to offer this kind of assistance, and I want to thank Charlotte for allowing Jim to spend the many hours he spent working on our guidelines and bylaws, and to allow him to make that late night drive home every month. And I miss Jim. And that's all. That's my statement. The attorneys here could do probably a better proclamation, and y'all are welcome to do that. But he actually received the Order of the Palmetto when he was 34, so he probably would appreciate just a kind word at this point more than a proclamation. Anyway, I've had my say.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the August meeting of the Design Review Board. The purpose of the board is to review applications for certificates of appropriateness for construction, alteration, demolition, and relocation of structures in Aiken's historic districts in an effort to help Aiken retain its historic character. We will begin by reviewing the minutes of the previous meetings. After the board votes on the approval of these minutes, which this month includes a memo for a site visit, we will begin calling applicants to the podium to speak. Please start by stating your name and your address, then explain your proposed project. The board may ask questions for clarification, and the public will be given an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. The board will then deliberate and make a decision on the appropriate guidelines and their professional experience. To members of the public who would like to speak, one presentation lasting no longer than 5 minutes gives everyone a chance to speak that would like to. Do I have a motion to pass the minutes from the last meeting?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
All approve? Any denial? All right, approve.
Yes, site visit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a motion for the memos for the site visit made on May.
I move that we accept the minutes for the special work session site visit May 2nd, 2024.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? And we are changing the agenda for today because an application has been removed or postponed. Application CERH 25004. The project or the demolition of existing stables adjacent to 525 Lawrence Street Southwest has been taken off the agenda for tonight. So staff will now present the application.
Item A under old business, application number CERD 24-001073. Applicant Melody Binion of Designer Builders, Inc. is requesting approval to construct a single-family home and connect it to an existing single-family home via a breezeway at 616 Park Avenue Southeast, tax map parcel 121-06-14-013. The proposed new carport and breezeway will connect from the rear left corner of the new garage to the original single-family home on the property, converting the structures into a duplex. The proposed new home addition will be a 2-story brick building with a total of 4,711 heated square feet. The main roof will consist of architectural shingles and Owens Corning's Estate Gray, while the shed roof will be Jed Metals in the color iron ore. The 2 dormers on the front facade, the larger pediments, and some of the front facade siding will have fiber cement board siding and batten siding painted Sherwin-Williams pure white. The proposed brick is Meridian Brick Old Bailey. The proposed double-hung windows are black with full divided lights. The grid patterns will reflect those in the submitted elevations. This property is located in the Old Aiken Overlay District and is zoned downtown business. As the applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family home that would connect to an existing single-family home, this would be considered a duplex, which is permitted in the downtown business zone. While the applicant did debate separating the 2 homes at the May 7th, 2024 DRB meeting, they have ultimately decided to propose a duplex. The construction date of the existing structure is listed as circa early 20th century on the Aiken Historic Resource Survey card. The Aiken County Assessor's website lists the construction date as 1918. The applicant has submitted an amended application based on discussions from the April 2nd, May 7th, and July 2nd DRB meetings. The updated drawings may be seen in Exhibit A. The old drawings may be seen in Exhibits I, J, and K. On the updated front elevation, the applicant has added more board and batten siding, removed the flared eaves, and altered the roof line over the front entrance. Additionally, the applicant has submitted photos of various properties in Aiken that are similar to their proposal massing to portray their efforts to conform with other homes in Aiken. And I believe Todd Gall is here to represent the application.
Hi, my name is Todd Gall with Designer Builders in Aiken at 935 Doherty Road. As y'all know my face now, having been here a few months. But we have appreciated, obviously, the opportunity. And each time we've met with you, we've listened and made changes. And it's been moving forward, and we do appreciate it. We appreciate that, and see if y'all have any questions. We had a little bit of discussion at the work session, but we feel like, obviously on our side, we think we've got it nailed. So, is there anything I can do to help or answer in addition to earlier? It was a look that the owners wanted, but also in the very first meeting, it was a comment that I got from the group. So they liked the idea and said, well, yeah, we like that look as well. And so that's kind of how it evolved. And then even from the last one, in looking at other homes, adding a little more to the front, like the gable over the garage, instead of the big brick gable, breaking that up. So that was the intent, to get it to come around, not just I'm something over on this side and I'm something different on that side was the goal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just what they want, and it's not a red brick. It's going to be a painted brick, as we've submitted with everything. So it's not a jump in your face red brick, and the majority of what you see from the two sides is very broken. And then it's, as we think about it often, it's a red brick house sitting on the side of the street. It's not. It's a soft look. So with more irregular shaped brick, not just a smooth face, painted flat front, more texture. That was the intent. So yeah. Yep, thank you. Anything else?
Improvement. Yeah. I'm talking about the Park Avenue side now. I think y'all have made major improvements on that. I also think that maybe we overplay the idea that you shouldn't see a garage downtown. I think maybe the intent of our, if I can say that, of our original prohibition on garages on the fronts were to avoid a south side look where many people live behind a garage, and two-car garage and maybe 6 feet of front door, and that doesn't fit. We've had that presented to us for downtown, and we've not approved those. But when you have a corner lot, I think we should have more latitude on that. It's logical, and it's not competing with the front door, obviously, here. And I do believe that maybe the front, y'all have increased the height of the porch column some.
Yeah, we did.
Looks
to
like,
see more of the windows and everything. In the initial, it was right on top of the doors, and
Yeah.
now that's changed as well. Yep.
so the roof was actually more prominent, I think, before.
Yes.
Now the porch is prominent,
Mhm.
and most of the cottage
Shutters
next
and things, yeah,
yeah.
the color's gonna come through, and it's
cottage next door has
very nice
all-
shutters.
porch all the way across the front, and you're beginning to get that. And I'll just say that I think the main massing of the house is much improved now that you have a gable and ridge, as opposed to the hips that you had that really don't fit into Aiken very well.
We've heard that before.
Yeah. Okay.
It's beautiful. The original design was beautiful. Just didn't have the context we were looking
I
for.
understand.
Question, Todd.
Yes, sir.
I wish that we'd had a rendering of the original Park Avenue side as opposed to what it started out as and what it morphed into now, because it looks like all of the garages are basically the same. Is that correct? All the garage doors?
Yeah, we had the original one, and that's one of the big changes, was adding the columns out front of them,
Right.
giving it a carriage or a barn
Right.
look, and changing
More
the
of an equine,
Yes, sir.
equine, okay.
That was the
Yeah.
intent, to fit with.
Sure. I missed,
We-
that's
right.
Yeah, I missed several of the meetings, and I'm just trying to get caught up,
Yeah.
and that's, all right. That's a big change, and I like the breezeway. It was changed some too,
Yes, sir.
quite a bit, so, okay. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'm concerned about the connection between the old and the new. It's so tenuous. And maybe that's something that could change. But But the application does say that that is to be studied as well, so.
I have a concern with it's almost like a legal fiction, if you will. It's an 8-foot little strip to make it a duplex. And that it makes it difficult. They're seeking to do it as an addition to a building. The addition is the cottage, which is why we have to look at our regs and our rules that govern an addition. Because it's not a new building, I'm concerned that we're going to consider this little carryover from a cottage that's supposed to be the beginning of, that's the historic structure that you're adding to. That's what you've chosen to do. And my concern is there's this little 8-foot strip that makes this whole 4,700-foot building an addition to a building that is 1,100 feet. And I'm just not sure where we're supposed to be on that. Because if it was a new build, we'd look at it differently. But the addition part of it, I'm just concerned that the addition requirements that were read numerous times about what to do when you have an addition, I think Ahmed said it the best, that's the mother. Make it relevant from the mother. And my only concern is that little cottage and the neighborhood right beside it all belong to have a character that is, as I drove by, historic Schofield neighborhood. There is a certain size and a certain harmony of that neighborhood and that cottage and the cottage right next to it. Look to your right, look to your left. And I'm concerned that an addition doesn't make sense under the guidelines that we are bound by. It's not that it's the building itself not in context is one thing, but we have, our job on this design review is to look at it in context of a neighborhood. How did it get here? What is there? And my concern is the additions section, this to be determined little piece of board makes me think we are not being candid about addition versus new build.
Yeah. Can you return to the podium to answer questions? Can you return to answer some questions for us, please?
Yeah, this has been brought up every single time, every month we've been here, and it stayed, and we didn't say to move it. I mean, only because it wasn't something that said get rid of it. I believe there's already a little porch there. It's just by short people.
Nothing wrong
Okay.
with that.
When I started this 4 months ago, you could hear me when I was out there, but I'm not anymore. That was there already. I believe there's already a little porch there, so it was just, continuing it. But it's been in that place every month, and so that it was part of the request. And I understand that it's just bringing it to it. It certainly could have been bigger, smaller. It was just, hey, maybe if somebody is walking, maybe we can keep them dry. It was just a friendly gesture to somebody walking between it, but it wasn't an intention to try to do something. And I understand the tie-in, but there's, it's already an existing door and a porch there, and so it's just a continuation of that. That's how it got there. It wasn't anything. I understand. Yeah. And we felt like we looked at those and answered them, and I even asked last month tell me what you want to call it. I need your help to answer the question. So that, and I don't know the legal, I'm certainly, I know 2 befores and 2 tens, but. I see. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave it on. I missed a meeting last time, but I'm not sure why y'all decided to make it an addition. Is it call it an addition? It sends us into 3 or 4 pages of all the requirements of an addition, which really you can't even apply to this. But is it because you want some cover over to go from one house to the other?
That's right. I mean, it was just to have some,
Yeah.
a little bit of protection, but
Yeah.
and we could call it whatever we want. We weren't trying.
It would be easier just to leave some umbrellas.
Yeah,
For-
it
to
wasn't
Because
intentionally
it
to
throws
try
us
to get
into a whole lot of stuff that we've got to kind of ignore about the addition shouldn't overpower the main house. I mean, that's just one of the aspects. And it's a new house. I even wonder if that that drive-through,
Yeah.
automobiles aren't but 6 feet high, I guess, and you probably know what trucks are, what, 7.5, and that's way, way, way up there. Would that help if that thing was not made for tractor trailers to go through? If
No,
it could
but
be brought.
it's not that high. It does work for some of these small little sprint vehicles with an air conditioning unit above it. You know,
Yeah,
if you had a
it
guest
does. You're saying it really might need to function to,
with that,
that high.
that's like a Sprinter van with the air
Yeah.
conditioning above it that people would
because
go
it,
for a-
it looks out of scale, I think.
Yeah,
other
I've
people-
had to do that for people in the
Yeah.
past that use them even for their work. You know, they travel, but you know that was the intention, and to have a continuation of it. And but that was the reason that we dropped the pitches significantly on the garage this time, as well as the carport, to begin to not be, wow, you have all of this, and now you got this cottage, you know, and that's all over Aiken. That's really cool. Sometimes is that cottage, but we've been through a lot of this, and that was always there. So we didn't. Nobody said take the damn thing, you know,
See, the
darn
garage-
thing off. Sorry.
The garage doors are about 8 feet high, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and then we brought that.
So that must be 11, probably up there.
Yeah, and usually you want 12, but a lot of those I've done with those units, the Sprinter units, with it on top.
Yeah.
It's not quite 12. It's about 11.2 or something.
Yeah.
11.4
So it's really purposely like that. It,
gives you that. Yeah. Because sometimes you have a guest come in and they've traveled in different places and they say, "Oh, we're going to stop and see the Millers for the weekend or long weekend and maybe charge up or something." I don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
I needed to ask. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little mystified, I guess. Well, first of all, I want to say what you've done, this new design is so much better than the other ones.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's,
Well, we got your help, so.
but I'm a bit mystified because I remember we've had a couple of long talks with you, you know, at the public hearing about the requirements that we are mandated to follow. And one, especially as a duplex, which makes this an addition. And last time, I remember actually reading some of these to you, and asking you to go back to please read them. And in fact, the one I remember reading to you, I've got underlined right here, and I'm going to read it again. The board's primary concern will be the impact of the design change on the existing residents. Such additions should not dominate the old buildings nearby. That's one of the first ones. And it says the board will not normally approve plans for an addition unless all 3 of the following criteria are met. So I'm sort of mystified why I think you've done a much better job on the new one, but I'm sort of mystified why you still kept it as an addition, because the
Well, it
problems
was
that
clear.
we have, the things that we have to judge this on are guidelines, and this is in violation of our guidelines, just as we explained last time and the time before. So I'm mystified why it keeps coming back as an addition.
Well, we were told last time that it's not outside the guidelines, and it was okay to do it this
No.
way, and we said, tell us what you want us to call it. And we kept it because, I mean, that's even with Rebecca's help, just understanding that. I mean, that porch going in between there doesn't have to be there. I said that last time and the time before, but it was, yes, that's okay, so we don't, I mean, it's not that big a deal, and we definitely did, this side, just last time, and it was a comment, it wasn't a vote, but it was a comment from everybody on the board. We like Park Avenue side now. It's the other side we've got to work on. Although we did make significant changes to the park side, bringing it down, softening it up as well, because it had to go with the front. You couldn't drop the garage gable and not affect the side, because when the front of the garage gable comes down, the side's going to come down, which then lowered the pitch on the carport to get very, very close to the pitch of the cottage, the existing home. So, but yeah, all you got to do is say take the porch or the breezeway off. But we followed what we felt like was the right thing, and which was what they would ultimately like to have. So why not? I mean, it wasn't.
Todd, in all due respect, this is our fourth time. I think the original application was a new build, but there is something, because we've had this more than once, and we've reviewed it, and appreciate the difficulty we're all in. We're all in. But we've asked, because I've asked on the record every time, are you sure you want to do this as an addition? And we have said it over and over. There was some reason versus a new build. That's yours to decide. But then once you decide that, we regretfully have to look at it, and we've been saying it every time. Please look at these regs, 5.1. All three have to be met. We appreciate your efforts, but there are consequences with the lot, changing it from a duplex addition, much stringent, to a new build. Those are yours, and we've said this.
Well, we haven't understood anything that tells us it shouldn't be that way, and we have read it, and so maybe we have yet to find anybody say it cannot be done this way. Nobody said that. So we wouldn't, if somebody said it cannot be done this way and it can't be tied to it, it wouldn't be tied to it. I mean, is that not kind of?
I think we've all said it in so many different ways. Please look at the requirements, and
We never understood that,
And I
nor was
remember
it ever said
actu-
that
yeah.
way.
And I remember reading them actually to you.
Right, and
which is
you've
the
just
same
read them
thing
again.
As reading the guidelines that we have to follow.
Right. I understand that, and you did read them again, and it's still, nobody said, it cannot be done this way, otherwise it wouldn't be done that way. I mean, it's that easy to take the porch off. That easy. All we're trying to do is get it passed. We're not trying to come back 7 more months in a row.
Right.
It's, I mean, we just,
So the porch deck on the side has been left off the drawings. Is that because you want to remove that?
no, honestly,
Just
we
didn't-
never had the house attached to it. I said, let's go over and measure it, and maybe I need some steps showing coming off the house on the side. They're not there, but they're
Yeah, well,
there.
currently in the photograph, they go off the back. If you change to the photograph view of the house,
Oh, yeah. That
I
would
think
be
that's on
great. That's my fault.
Exhibit B, page 3. Yeah, on the right there.
Yeah, it's got a little roof, so
Yep.
we just,
You would remove that, put
No.
the new breezeway,
yeah, to just
Yeah.
tie it in to have it.
but leave the deck and the steps off the
all
back,
that's the
right?
same. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're just trying to say, don't just stop at it can stop there and not be attached, and still be the porch, and still probably scoot just trying to.
Well, I
Madam-
think when
Have
you
some
look at
harmony
it
with
from,
it.
when you look at it from this angle, I think it makes sense why you have the height that you do on the breezeway.
Right.
Is because you kind of need it to tie in and hit the
Yeah.
cornice levels the right way and all.
Because it's at that level,
Right.
it's that height, and those steps are there. They're going to continue to be there, and If for no other reason, it could, I'm not saying it's this way and it wasn't intended, but if it's not attached, it's still gonna look like that because the roof's still there. There's no difference. Yeah, or the little porch roof that's on the house now.
Right.
If we drew it correctly, it can be exactly
Yeah.
the way the drawing is showing right now, because there's still a porch going from A to B, or a porch on the house that's getting very close.
Madam Chair, if they were to remove the porch and make it separate buildings instead of an addition, there would also be some repercussions with setbacks. I think there would have to be at least 20 feet between buildings of that size next to each other for fire code. And there's some other setbacks that I'd have to check for you.
That was where we got this intention to be this way.
Thank you.
We feel good about what we've submitted for all the right reasons and the height, and that's why it's a small porch, because it's already there, or the size of it's already there, you know. And we did try, and it does show on the site plan, the steps going down. That is the existing. We went out and remeasured the exact house and drew it to help present to you guys better.
I was actually going to suggest to make that the roof that is attaching right now a stronger roof, like something that is, you know, sloped, so it doesn't look like it's so tenuous, and it was an afterthought.
I mean, that's easy. It's easy to
yeah.
do it. We would have to make it bigger, just wider to get a higher pitch. But one of the reasons, I think, there's a window up there on the
There's
house.
still, there's room though.
and yes, there is.
There's
yeah.
room.
Yeah, you could make it
Yeah.
steeper, but we were trying to keep the same pitches as you come across, not be, again, going, we're all trying to lower the pitches, make it soft feeling. That was with, again, good intentions. We could make it a wider and get closer to that window, you know, that, get the ridge closer to that window, and
Just so it has some similarity to the new build.
yes, yeah. And that was the whole intention of that side of the house, some similarities as we come down. We have enough, because, you know, that window that's above the porch now does serve as some kind of egress, you know, so we got to consider those things. If somebody's up there sleeping, we got to be able to get out.
Is there any other comment? Is there a motion? Oh, yes, I always forget, I'm sorry. Could we have public comment, please? Yes?
Good evening, everyone. Linda Johnson, 515 Parkside Drive. I'm here representing Historic Aiken Foundation Board. So on behalf of the board, I'm up here for the fourth time to express some continuing concerns with the house at 616 Park Avenue. The latest proposal does change some of the styling details, remove some things that you don't normally find in the historic district. And so that was good. The roof has been changed to reduce the massing of the roof, but we still have the problem of overall scale. And just to put this in perspective, as I understand it, the heated square footage is 4,700 square feet and the garage is 1,100 square feet. Is that correct? Okay, so 3,600 on the square footage and 1,100 on the garage. So we're looking at about 5,000 square feet. For comparison, the bungalow next door, according to the county records, is 1,140 square feet. So the garage is almost as big as the bungalow itself. The house going up right behind this house is 876 square feet. The next one's 882. The next one's 1,484. Across the street, we have some bigger houses. We have a 2,000 square foot house and an 1,100 square foot house. And even those homes, the newer homes on Park, are 2,000 some square feet. This house is much more massive and out of scale compared to the neighborhood. We also have the 4-car garage facing Park, the primary street. I get it, this is a house on a corner, and we've talked about how that's an issue for garages, but the garage definitely shouldn't face the primary street, according to the guidelines. And I've already in the past cited the guidelines. I'm not going to bore you by doing that again. In addition, and those problems, by the way, are whether it's an addition or new construction. But if it's an addition, I think we have the additional problem that an addition should mimic the siding of the original. And here we have this original that I think is board and batten, and the addition's going to be some combination of brick and board and batten. So that might be a problem if it continues to be an addition. But back to the fact that the scale is just wrong for this area and for this neighborhood and the neighbors around them. So thank you.
Can I ask a question? Ms. Johnson? Sorry. I think you made some good points, and I just wanted to ask a couple of follow-on questions,
Sure.
if you don't mind. So when I look at the downtown properties, and I'm going a little wider than what you just described, you know, I see older homes from 100 years ago, 150 years ago, where they had very big, you know, I'm going to say luxury homes, but big homes, and then a lot of infill, what we might call servants' quarters, smaller properties all around those big homes. Do you see this differently than what I just described?
I see it as today's guidelines. They were doing all that back long before we had guidelines. You know, we have our guidelines today, and our guidelines say that new infill or additions should be within the scale of the neighborhood.
So if you look across the street on Stobbs Lane at 807,
Yeah.
which is almost directly across, you see this massive 2-story red roof house
Yeah.
with a bunch of small lots all around it.
I know.
Isn't it exactly the same thing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Again, we've got guidelines now. And if you want to change the guidelines and say, hey, we want to do this mix and match, you don't really have to just consider what's in the neighborhood.
Well,
That's fine.
what I was really referring to was context, that we want to keep the same context, and it feels
Okay.
like we have the same context across
If you
the
look
street.
at that property across the street, though, you've got the large house. Doesn't it have a lot of land around it, a nice big yard? So it's kind of set in a property. It's not, you know,
It
crammed
certainly
in
used to have a
between.
lot until they subdivided it and
Yeah.
put a new house right next to it.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I spoke last time, I think. I'm Melanie Powers. I live at 707 Park Avenue Southeast. My property is right across the street from, and right next to the red house you just discussed. Our house is 4,500 square feet, and we are on a corner also, and there are 2 smaller houses to the right of us and 2 smaller ones behind us. So to me, that is Aiken. If you drive around Aiken and you drive on our neighborhood and our areas, that is what you will see. So in my mind, what is being asked to be built is very similar to what already exists in Aiken, not just in all over the downtown area, in the historic district and the overlay area. It's almost like you're discounting those railroad tracks. It's like there's a wall. You know, that's old, that's the way it used to be, but now those railroad tracks are not a barrier. We're a community. And so discounting us, right, that are across the tracks, saying that we're not part of that neighborhood is just not real life. In real life, we're neighbors, and we know each other, and we want to see that house built in our neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Lang from 219 Marion Street. And I would like to say, on the heels of what Melanie said about on the our side of the tracks, we've got the big houses and the small houses and so on and so forth. So I do feel it's a bit exclusionary to say that once you get across the tracks, you can't do a big house. And I think that's kind of a slippery slope. And the plans look lovely. I think they're going to blend in just fine with the feel of Aiken. And so I'd like to see the changes. I think they're wonderful. I don't think they need any more. But it's a little confusing what you want to see from them as far as your guidelines and everything. And I'm just wondering if somebody here could explain very clearly and concisely so that we can all understand what it is that you want, because maybe some of us want to do some stuff too. So, if you could just please explain exactly what you're looking for from Bernice and Bobby, so that they know and we know what you need, what you absolutely have to have. Thank you.
I would say there are, for old Aiken overlay, there's a book. It has pictures. It has guides. It is important to read and understand it. There's this, and it's what Aiken has followed. It's really important to understand Aiken historically. We almost lost the Wilcox. We could have had condos all around Joy Cottage. We were going to have a roller skating track around Hitchcock Woods. There were lots of ideas out there that people thought were good. The old Aiken overlay is to preserve the character of the neighborhood. So the key is, in basic training, is to look at the context. What's on your right, what's on your left, and why does it matter? And that's what we are guided by. And I urge anyone to pull up, whether it's online or get a copy from the city, the design review guidelines and the old Aiken design guidelines. They're two different things, because the railroad track did make a difference historically. It did. And we have to preserve the character of the neighborhoods of where they are.
I do think there is some interpretation to be had in our guidelines. They are guidelines and not laws, right? And when I think back to the office building that we approved, that was, what's the street that it's across? Newberry. Yeah, that was the context there, was very, that particular building did not really work with the context, but it met zoning, so it was allowed. So I think there is room for interpretation, and people are going to want bigger houses in certain, at certain times, and does an 800 square foot house, is it really practical in today's, environment? It's a difficult question. It really is. And I understand the history. I understand the guidelines. We've been saying it's a really big property on a small lot. But we also have been, we have not said no in these last 4 meetings to the size. We really haven't been very clear, I think, in our past reviews. So.
With the microphone turned on, the problem with being so restrictive is you may end up pushing larger houses out into Woodside and new developments like Woodside, so that people, if they want a reasonable sized home, they won't want to live in Aiken. They'll be on the golf course. And that in a way works against what we all want. It's more people enjoying the downtown and having more options in terms of sizes. I lived on Cotton Avenue across from, let's pretend, I guess, and it was 7,000 square feet, and our house was 1,500. And I didn't object. That's the way Carlton was. I think y'all are saying across the road tracks, it's mostly all one size, but this is 2 lots, I believe. I'm thinking it's 2 lots.
Is it?
It has been massaged quite a bit. If you look at it in 3 dimensions, it's a little more helpful, as opposed to the flat elevations that that make it look like it's 150 feet wide. If we go back to the Exhibit A, the 3D, there we go. It does help to see that it's actually a series of buildings. The garage is not, as somebody pointed out, not dissimilar from the cottage. You can see right there, almost the same scale. I personally don't like the the extra tall drive-through, but if that's a functional requirement, that would improve greatly if that just dropped down. If we're going to do it as an addition, I don't like it being called an addition. It makes it hard for us to make it fit our guidelines. And I also had a personal preference that you might have 3 dormers instead of a dormer and a gable. If you went 3 dormers, you really would be more like, cottage, country cottage, although a large one. But I understand the owner wants the gable, and you do have some other gables that it ties into. I think with that plan, they've done a remarkable job, and I hate that we would just deny people to living in larger homes downtown.
Yes, please.
My name is Mandy Drumming. I live at 412 Pendleton Street. I've been listening to your comments here. When I hear about the talk about room for interpretation, that's when I become a little concerned. I live on Pendleton Street on the northwest side of town. And this is, if we want to give interpretation, and I've been, I'm a design and decorative arts historian. I've been talking about this arts and craft movement shaping Aiken, and it was in reaction. You don't see the breakers, you don't see Biltmore, you don't see those houses in Aiken. You don't see these gigantic houses in downtown Aiken because it was a reaction to the industrialization, urbanization, and excessiveness. And so in Aiken, that's why so if you think about that, what's in reaction going to be that? It's going to be nature first. It's going to be simplicity, utility, handcraftsmanship of works. And so that's kind of what the entire district of historic Aiken inside the grid system and why people want to come live here. So I know across the street there are larger homes, but I think Linda made a good point of saying there is adequate green area around them, each one. And I know there was a new build, but again, I mean, when I hear we want larger homes downtown, I'm sorry, it's, my house is a 4 square. From what I told, it was a black professor that lived there. It's kind of a craftsman style. And that's why I'm in Aiken, because I want to continue that. I like walking and being in that neighborhood, just like people have to pay HOA fees and live in a neighborhood that they like to look at in a certain way. Historic Aiken is just like that. And that's why the guidelines are good to be followed, to continue that for all of us that have chosen to live there. We come to live there because of those guidelines. So we just want to hear that. It's just a little bit concerning to me. I don't, again, those larger homes have adequate green space. Nature first. Nature should be first. Architecture second. If we ever get to the point to talk about arts and craft movement in Aiken, because it shaped Southern California and Pasadena, Colorado Springs, Northeast, we talk about it all, Southeast, talk about in the southwest, northwest, and northeast areas. We don't talk about down here. When we finally get to have that conversation, things will make sense of why there's so much nature in downtown Aiken, why the buildings aren't so large, why we don't have, the breakers in Aiken. And I think when we finally have that conversation, why some of the north side community is extremely important to the overall community. And just while I'm here, when I was an undergrad here, I took history, and I remember being told that, Aiken is where, and it's definitely part of the story that wealthy winners came down to ride horses and leisure, and that is very true. But when I went back to graduate school, I went to school at Cork College of Art and Design, partnership with Smithsonian Associates, and I learned about architecture and design. I came back, and I'm like, okay, the buildings in the entire, all quadrants don't match necessarily this full story that we're being, does not match the full story. So I just want, when you say interpretation, gray area, that would be what I would supplement then in there, and to follow these guidelines. I think they've been there for people before and for after. It's all of us in the historic district, not just one person. Those are things I just hope we keep considering for everyone, so everyone can be part of it, this community that we're all part of. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Yes, can I
Certainly.
go back? Rebecca, have we gotten any, we've had some input from some neighbors. Have we had any other input? Being gone for a couple of months, just wanted to catch up. Did you have any other?
I haven't received any additional letters concerning this application.
Okay.
I think Historic Aiken Foundation submitted some comments, which are in your packet, and I think there were some signatures from neighbors that the applicants provided in support, and I think that's all that we've received in writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, to that point, Rebecca, I actually was, it was probably, I didn't come to the first one because I wasn't on the board yet. I think it was the second one, the second meeting that we had, but there were a number of neighbors, were there not, that were in favor of this?
I believe that's correct.
You had about 5 or 6 of them. Is that correct? I just
To the
want to
best
put it
of
on
my
the
knowledge,
record.
I think that was
Yeah,
correct.
okay, thank you. Yeah, it is.
Any other comments? Comments, questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Faith, I'd just like to make a comment because I know it's been unusual in the sense that we've had this application, these applicants come before us 4 times. I am very concerned about the fact that it's as an addition, but what I do find that I think that the new plan that they have put out is much better. The massing is reduced the massing hugely, and I think, and I don't think it's inappropriate. I also think it's fair about the fact that there are similar houses right across the street. I don't believe that there is a strict limitation just to look left and right. I think it's appropriate to take it in context with things that are across the street, and I think we do need to take that into consideration. And the other thing that I also take into consideration is what our chairman said, that they've been here 4 times, and we have really said no to the massing. And that's on us. And I don't think that it will take away from the neighborhood overall because of the fact that you've got some in sight line right across the street. And the other thing that I find extremely persuasive is that you've got 5 or 6 neighbors that have been here. They're not all here tonight. I guess they just get tired of coming back all the time. But I find it persuasive that they're all in approval of this.
Yep. I echo what Pat said, and that same reasoning was used on several decisions that we've made in the last year concerning some changes that were made on Lawrence Street, some buildings down there. So, you know, you have to look at that part, but willingness to make these changes and come back. And I really appreciate the evolutionary drawings that you provided so that we can, especially since I wasn't here during some of the iterations, but the beginning to the end. So thank you for that, Todd.
I'd like to comment too. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I am concerned that as a board, an addition is not the appropriate way to do it. And that's, the work has evolved, but as a board member, to do it as an addition causes me great heartburn for precedent. If we could do it as a new build and do, but there's different restrictions, you see? And that's been my concern from the very beginning. The very first meeting, I said, why are we doing this? Are you sure you want to? Because we're stuck by those addition requirements. And that's, as a board, I'm concerned that if we look at those requirements, it doesn't say, I believe in flexibility. I'm not trying to be difficult about it, but it says the board will not normally approve unless all of the following are met. And I just don't think it's close, and that's difficult. And I think we're in for a precedent that I'm concerned about for the long run. And that's been my concern from the very beginning. We're creating this legal mess for all of us as an addition. If it was a new build, I think it'd be a totally different picture for me.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion whenever we get a chance.
Could I just have?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to actually, I do understand what Barbara's saying. I do echo that. I don't think this particular application should or will be used as a precedent, and I think that it's incumbent on this board in the future to make the guidelines clear at the beginning and not have people come back. If they're confused, then they need to go back to planning, and they need to sit down with planning, and it needs to be explained to them about why they're wrong and why they cannot continue to come before this board. And I think that we should use that as a precedent as we go forward, to clarify the process. I agree with Ms. Morgan completely on this. I'm not comfortable voting on it as an addition at all. It bothers me, but for all the other reasons that I mentioned earlier, and with this proviso about not using that, being able to use that as a precedent, but basically as an example of not clarifying the guidelines and taking steps to do so in the future a little bit better. I think we should all do that in the future.
My only concern is we've said it from the very beginning. They came as a first, and there were reasons that they chose, and we kept, at every meeting, we've said, are you sure that, because we're more restrictive as an addition. And I understand our difficulty trying to help. Nobody wants to say no, especially as many times as you've been here. I truly understand that. And I am frustrated myself over the difficulties, because at the very first meeting, I specifically said, are we sure there's a reason. I looked at Rebecca, there's a reason why you chose that. And if we could amend it and change it, as you just said, Todd, let's just take that off. I'll make it two separate buildings. But there is a consequence to that. And I just think
Actually, the consequence would be solved if the the breezeway wasn't there.
I agree. If the
Correct.
breezeway was there, you'd have a whole different situation.
It would be,
And we'd all might be looking at it differently.
I have a proposal. And my proposal is since that we're all in agreement that this is a new house, that we should find that it's okay based on our design guidelines for a new house. Because our design guidelines in 5.2 new buildings say this is fine. And that's what our proposal should be.
The problem with it is that difference between the structures needs to go.
If that's what you want to vote, that's fine.
I mean, that's the consequence.
And I understand what the application says, but I'm just talking about what our motion should be. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I think that that breezeway or the whatever you call it is causing all of us concern.
Well, there can be a motion on the table that, to move to approve this project without the breezeway,
The open
carport.
Right.
We want to make sure
Yeah,
that
it's on the plan. I should call it what it's,
that changes everything.
Well, Madam Chairman, I just request that we go ahead and have a motion. If somebody else wants to make that motion. No, go right ahead.
All right, well, I'll make a motion. I don't think everybody's in
Madam
it.
Chair, I'm sorry for the interruption, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure you all are aware that if the motion is made to approve without the carport and the connection, then I would need to go back and check the size of the building and setbacks to make sure it is still compliant with our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's a good point.
That's fair.
Yep, because I wasn't gonna do that anyway. So, Madam Chairman, on the application, CERD 24-001073, I move that the board finds that the proposed project at 616 Park Avenue is in harmony with the architectural character of the district, and that we find that it is in compliance with the design guidelines found in section 5.2 of our design review manual on new home construction.
Second.
But are you going to say so that it has to take off the carport?
No, that is not my recommendation.
I would like to make a motion to modify that
Okay,
motion to eliminate the breezeway.
I'm not in favor of that.
I'm not in favor of that.
I'll second her motion.
Would you like me to withdraw my motion? Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Well, wait a minute. Could we have staff clarify if it goes forward with, we know that if
With
they,
the zoning.
I'm sorry, is it okay to ask a question? We understand that if it's removed, then all of a sudden it's a new building, as the motioner stated, but if it goes through the planning department, the building department, who's gonna object? Who's gonna, they won't get a permit if it has that?
That's right, the next step is to get a building permit, at which point it'll come back
So
through the
you'd let
planning
the building
department.
department decide if it conforms?
If it doesn't at that point
But would it need,
comply with the ordinance, you
but
know.
would it ever need a variance? Because the bylaws and the ordinance requires that any variances be granted before the board can
That's right.
make a decision.
That's accurate.
That's right.
So I don't know that a motion today can be
And
approved if they may need zoning, a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I don't think they needed a zoning variance for my motion.
but
And they, having the garage face the street is a zoning variance, should have been, but it wasn't, so, I mean, it's not allowed. There's a zoning ordinance that says,
I don't believe, I'm not sure that that's in the zoning ordinance. I think it's in the guidelines.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
What would the zoning issues be with
Setback.
the building setbacks? No?
A couple of things. So one, yes, setbacks.
Mhm.
Two, if we're gonna have two single-family homes on this lot, then probably one of two things either need to happen. You know, we would need to make sure that the size of each building is correct, because one would need to be considered an accessory building. And that can only be a certain percentage of the primary building and its size. And if that can't be corrected, or if it doesn't comply with our ordinance, the other option would be to re-subdivide those properties. But then again, it would have to, you know, comply with the setbacks of a single-family home on a single parcel.
It is two lots. I mean, it appears to be two lots.
I think it's currently two lots that were combined into one.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Don't withdraw your motion.
But if the amended motion passed, it should be able to be permitted. If these,
I think the amended motion was that the
It-
connection
it removes the
is removed.
setback problem.
Well, I think that would,
Implicate.
You might have to
that
put
would
the
start
property-
the problem, because then it would no longer be a duplex, it would be two single-family homes.
They'd have to have a
Right.
zoning variance.
Then you may have to put the property line back.
But again, I'd have to check the size of both
So-
properties.
So if it's a primary and this cottage could be considered the accessory based on the size, then it could be fine. The setback, it's that carport, breezeway issue.
Either way, there would need to be, I think, 20 feet between each building. So.
Order. We have a motion in front of us that has been seconded, and it's time for a vote.
Well, I should remove my motion, since it opens up a whole set of problems with the process.
I think you're gonna,
I'm withdrawing my amendment to the first.
Should I
It was
repeat
seconded.
my motion?
Yes, please.
I think so, because I think you may have
Yes.
We have it
withdrawn
written
yours.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to recommend that on application CERD 24-001073, I move that the board finds that the proposed project at 616 Park Avenue Southeast is in harmony with the prevailing historical character of the district in which it is located, and that we find that the application is in compliance with our design review manual, specifically section 5.2 for new buildings, and that we approve the application as submitted.
So, and second it again.
So all in favor?
a discussion.
Discussion?
My concern is that the record needs to reflect that it was not in compliance with 2. It is an addition, not a new build. And your motion is to change the whole status of it, which I think could be a defect, which might create a problem.
I understand, and maybe that's a problem. You'd certainly know more about legal issues than I do, but I can tell you that from the 10 years I've been on the board, that we frequently change what was recommended in the application, and we say, this is the way we would like to be reflected in the COA.
That's true.
I appreciate your heritage on this 10 years plus, so, but I am concerned that this application has been discussed as an addition. We have said on the record that we all know that as an addition, it doesn't fly. So to do what you're doing is to flip it and you're passing it, and I think the problems are not over. I think the problems are still gonna be, if you're making it a new build, then it's gonna go just as problematic. We're not fixing it. Because you see, it's gonna open up a problem for her. The problems occur no matter what we do. And that's you're saying it's a new build, so she's gonna have to make an adjustment, and that's,
I'm just saying it's in compliance with our design review manual found in section 5.2. I'm not telling them.
as a new build.
That's in compliance with the new build section of our design review manual. I'm not saying that they need to apply for a zoning variance. I'm not saying how they should write up their building permit. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying I think it's in compliance with our section 5.2. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and my concern is we might just kick the can down the road and create more problems to another department of the city when we could be just candid and deal with the problems as the amended that was withdrawn does. That's my concern. Otherwise, I mean, I understand what we're doing and why you're trying to do it. I don't think it's gonna be the solution, and it's gonna cause more problems for zoning and building. As a new build, because that's what you're doing. You're making it a new build, and that is different.
Okay.
But I understand and respect what you're doing.
Call for the motion.
Yeah, there is a motion on the table. There's a second. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
I second.
Item A under new business, application number CERH25-002. Applicants Stephen and Sarah Guida are requesting approval to replace the existing windows at 339 Horry Street Southeast, tax map parcel 121-10-24-003. The existing windows are 3/1 and 4/1 double hung wood windows with true divided lights. The applicant has stated that the 12 4/1 windows appear to be original to the structure. 7 of these windows are located on the front facade, with the remaining on the rear. An addition was constructed in the 1960s, which included 7 new 3/1 windows. 3 windows within an upstairs bedroom were also replaced with 3/1 windows at this time. The applicant is now requesting window replacements for the following reasons. The windows on this structure currently do not match, as the new 3/1 windows differ from the original 4/1 windows. The owners would like to correct this as they replace the deteriorated windows. All except 2 windows are inoperable. The windows have been layered with multiple layers of paint throughout the years. Jambs do not line up in several windows. The condition of the cords and weights cannot be determined because the windows are unable to be opened. All of the windows have single panes that are not energy efficient. Storm windows were installed on some of the windows. The owners removed some of those a few years ago because they were unsightly. They then discovered that the window glazing had deteriorated due to mold and condensation. It has been difficult to find a craftsman to rehabilitate the windows, and this option has proven to be financially infeasible for the owners. Various photos have been submitted with the application to depict the deterioration of the windows. The proposed replacement windows are Anderson Woodwright double hung clad windows. They will be clad with fiberglass/FiberX exterior. These windows will have a 4/1 grid pattern to match the original windows and will consist of full divided lights. This replacement is an insert window, which will fit into the existing window frame. This is a contributing property located in the Historic Overlay District, specifically Historic District 2, and is zoned RS15 single family. The Aiken County Assessor's website lists the construction date of the structure as 1937. The Aiken Historic Resource Survey card lists the construction date as circa 1925. I believe the Guidas are here to speak on their application.
I'm Sarah Holly Guida, and this house that we're currently living in, I grew up in. It has been in my family since either 1937 or 1925, whichever date's correct. We've lived all over the United States and decided to come back to Aiken. And we're trying to make this home livable and improve it. And we appreciate you considering allowing us to replace the windows, and try to make it look exactly like it looks now as much as possible. So, any questions?
I do.
Yes?
I'm a little confused, and I think it's not your fault. I think it's the 400 series. Is that Anderson? I think they've confused me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm looking on page 6 of the handout with all the, the grids and stuff. And
Yes.
over here, as a matter of fact, it's on the screen. Thank you, Rebecca. You can see where it says full divided light. When I hear the word full divided light, I think of individual panes. And then if you read the details, it says that they're permanently applied, which I would normally call simulated divided light.
Right.
So I think it's confusing the way they've done their literature, not your fault.
Right, right.
But
right.
I did want the board to understand that we're not getting what we would normally call full divided light. We're getting simulated divided light with permanently applied grids, which I'm very happy.
And there's
I'm
also
happy with that.
There's also like a piece of a grid inside.
Side of it, right.
Inside of it. So it's not just on the outside, it's also inside.
It's a very high quality window.
Right, it
Very
is.
happy with it.
Yes.
Your choice. Yeah.
And the outside of it is a wood composite material.
Yep.
It's a beautiful cottage.
Thank you.
But I also have lived in a house that had those rope and pull and weights and all.
Yeah.
And the deteriorated sash is one thing, but you literally have to take the wall apart to refurbish your 12, I believe, original windows.
Right. And the others are not original. They were done in the early 60s. This house has had several
You've got a mixture,
remodels during the years, and
right?
this board wasn't here at that
So
time.
even if you spend a bunch of money taking the wall apart, try to put the weights in, you're still going to have some unmatching windows. I think the storm window thing is recommended, but it's not a good
No, and we
look.
did have storm windows up, and, well, everything inside got moldy, and the caulking deteriorated, so it looked worse, and so we took them down, because we thought it looked worse. And it was damaging the windows. Any questions?
I wonder if it's a Sears,
No, it wasn't. No,
somebody
My-
locally built it.
yeah, I'm not sure. It was my father's aunt, and that's who he bought it from, so. My family's been in this town a long time, like 5 generations. So I'm not sure, but I don't think it was a Sears house.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board? Any public comment?
Our neighbors are aware of what we're doing. We have very good neighbors, and so I keep them updated. Is that it?
Thank you. Motion? Please.
On application CER H25-002, I move that the board find that the facts proposed in the project at 339 Horry Street Southeast are in harmony with architectural character of the neighborhood in terms of design, scale, texture, and other elements, and that it's also in compliance with our design review manual on replacing storm windows, sashes, and shutters.
Second. And I'm just glad that you're keeping this in the family and that you're maintaining it and for many, many years to come. So thank you for that. There you go.
All in favor of the motion? No deny? Motion passed. Thank you.
I bet you're just impressed that it happened that fast, aren't you?
Yes.
Item B under new business, application number CERH25-004 has been postponed pending a site visit on August 22nd. Item C under new business, application number CERD25-001002. Applicant Robert Girardeau of Aiken County Habitat for Humanity is requesting approval to construct a new single-family home at 1414 Thorpe Lane, tax map parcel 121-11-12-008. The proposed new dwelling is a one-story building constructed on a concrete slab foundation. It will have vinyl siding in the color flagstone and an architectural shingled roof in the color dual gray. The applicant proposes white vinyl windows with a half screen. The proposed windows do not include simulated divided lights, and the grid patterns will be as seen in the elevations. This property is located in the Old Aiken Overlay District and is zoned RS6 single family. This is currently a vacant lot. This property does not have an Aiken Historic Resource Survey card.
I'm Robert Girardeau with Aiken County Habitat for Humanity. Office is 1026 Park Avenue.
Robert, thank you for your work. How many years have you been doing this?
Since 95, so almost 30.
That's commendable. And I guess you have an owner who's going to assist.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We talked about a couple things that I think would be big improvements and without a lot of cost. And one of them was your suggestion of breaking the porch out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the porch doesn't need to go all the way across. Maybe
Right.
it becomes a gable in the front. I think in that respect, the roof would cover the heated portion of the house. Right now, the roof covers the porch too.
Right.
So it really
kind of like the house across the street where we'd step it back on the main body of the house, have the porch in the center about 14 feet, and then 10 feet on either side.
Yeah.
Would be just the heated portion, creating that broken up roof line.
right. The broken up sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing
Right.
in terms of
Right.
of a front
Gives it a little more
elevation
character.
of a home, of a small house in particular.
Yes, sir.
Absorbing the the porch into the trusses may be a good selling point for the truss guy, but it actually it eliminates a lot of detail and interest. So you'd be open to that. It
Yes,
sounds
sir.
like.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And you already said that your slab is somewhat elevated.
It's a raised slab. We
Yeah,
block it
raised
up,
slab,
4
so-
foot or block it up, and it'd be
Okay.
16 inches or so above grade now.
Can I just ask? So it's kind of between a slab on grade and a flat slab.
Well, when you use a block foundation
Right.
to raise it up,
So you're
so
gonna go up.
you
what
don't
about-
have to. You can come up as high as you want to, really.
So what is your?
16 inches.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
It'd be between 2 and 3 block total, so 16 to 24 would be the elevation.
Is that a flat?
Flat.
Are you gonna have? Yeah, you're gonna have to do any?
The lot's
So it's no
flat.
sloping.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
So you will have stairs at the entry,
Stairs.
at the steps.
Oh, steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll grade around the house to taper the water away, and that usually will eliminate all steps, but maybe one.
Yeah, thanks. That was what I was
Steps
getting
would
to.
be
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's an expense,
For
but-
y'all's look, probably for ADA and things like that, steps are bad, so. So it's two forces
know.
there that I'd work around, but yeah, we could have steps.
Is it possible, if you do this revision, is it possible to have a deeper porch than 4 feet, maybe?
Well, the setback on the front's 20 and the back is 15, and we're right at those, and that's kind of limiting the depth of the porch based on the lot size. So we could squeeze out a little more, but not a lot.
Yeah. And the materials, the exterior material,
Vinyl siding, yes, ma'am.
We allow in the old Aiken overlay, but not in the historic district, I think we'd say.
is there any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Nope. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chairman, with regard to application CERD 25-001-002. I move that we approve the application with the modifications that we discussed, which would provide an extended porch with a gable facing the front of the house, so that actually the roof would cover the heated portion, the main roof would, reducing the span, and give the house a gable porch. And I believe that in that respect it will be more in character with the neighborhood or with the other small cottages in that area. And I also think we would like to have the 16-inch raised slab elevation, which will also help the height.
Okay, second.
All in favor? Yes.
Right. So I just want to be clear on what we're voting on. We're not voting on the picture of the house across the street, because that just had a raised rake roof. Would you pull that back up, please? So that house there does not have a gable on the front of the house, and I just want to be clear that we're voting on something to have a gable,
Right.
like an A-frame on the front of the house, right? Yeah.
I would recommend that we have a resubmission that possibly could be a staff approval,
Administrative approval.
administrative.
I'll add that to the motion.
Yep. I just want to be clear, so that was all. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Good point, too.
Is there a second to that modification?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion moved. Thank you.
Maybe, okay. Madam Chair,
Sorry?
I'm going to recuse myself, Madam Chairman, because I may have a conflict with the next application.
I believe the written recusal is in
Yes,
the
that's right. I
agenda
have a
materials.
recusal form in there. Okay, thank you.
Item D, under new business, application number DES 24-01001. Applicant Kimberly Toney is requesting to amend the Friendship Baptist Church complex designation at 112 Kershaw Street Southeast, 515 and 515B Richland Avenue East, tax map parcel 121-06-16-001. Currently, the entire complex is listed as a landmark, including the church, sanctuary, parsonage, and activity building. The applicant is now requesting that the church sanctuary building retain its landmark status, but the parsonage be designated as a contributing building and the activity building designated as a non-contributing building. This church complex, including the sanctuary, parsonage, and activity building, was designated as a landmark to the Aiken Historic Register in 1994. The church sanctuary is addressed as 515 Richland Avenue East, the parsonage as 112 Kershaw Street Southeast, and the activity building as 515B Richland Avenue East. The Aiken Historic Resource Survey card lists the construction date of the church building as 1893. The original designation application from 1994 states that the activity building was constructed in 1939 with an addition constructed in 1977, while the parsonage was constructed circa 1920. The purpose section of the Design Review Board on page 4 describes the 3 designation levels within a historic district or historic site as follows. A landmark is a structure that is essential to the character of a historic district or historic site. The Cushman-Vance House and Banksia are 2 examples of structures with landmark status. Both are listed in the Aiken Historic Register as part of a historic district and as historic sites. Noticeable changes to landmarks and structures eligible for landmark status should usually be avoided. Structures that are 50 or more years old or that have aesthetic or historical importance are normally classified as contributing. Contributing properties are worthy of preservation, but are often more tolerant of change than properties eligible for landmark status. The Habersham House gatepost, the Saddlebag Cottage, and the Coach House are examples of contributing structures. The loss of a non-contributing structure should not adversely impact the character of a historic site or district. And I believe Kimberly is here today.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Tony, applicant for Friendship Baptist Church located at 515 Richland Avenue. Just a couple of comments. A comment that was, excuse me, a comment that was made during the work session stating our intent for the parsonage or the admin building. I think it was spelled out in the Exhibit A on page 7 on the second paragraph of our intent. That we plan to submit a certificate of appropriateness to have the parsonage be relocated. We recognize the fact that that is a contributing structure and would like to preserve it and to keep it within the area. And we are open to, that was our original plan, was to present a certificate of appropriateness when we found out about the designation amendment. So we would like to, our intent is to allow for a new administrative building and a new site to be located, a vacant lot nearby our church. It's within a mile of our church. And I think we said that at one of our meetings and also on our site visit.
Sorry, I'm looking on Exhibit A, page 7. I'm sorry, I just didn't see where it said that you wanted to move the building.
Today, the parsonage, that paragraph, today the parsonage is preserved in its original condition.
Okay.
That paragraph.
Church is.
And it states our intention for.
We'll propose, a later application is rounds to have the parsonage moved, allow the administrative building. Okay, I see that. Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
And that's literally across the street, not a mile away. Am I right?
It's within a mile.
Well, I
It's,
mean,
it's across the street. It's
across the street.
It's still on Richland Avenue. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Yes.
That's what yes. Because you went, then you said a mile. I was like, oh.
Oh no.
Yeah, diagonally across. But the activities building, do we have any intent on any? I didn't see anything on that.
We consider that to be non-contributing, and we do not plan to, are you asking if we plan to relocate it or anything like that? What's your question?
What your plans are?
Oh, it's not, we just would like for it to be removed from the landmark status. We consider that to be non-contributing.
Well, based on what?
Yeah, based on what?
Based on does not adversely impact the character of the historic site. If in the September 1994, I don't know what you call that,
Landmark application.
landmark application, that activity building, what we call the activity building, was never intended as a historical. It was not. The only thing that was historical is our sanctuary that is on our historical register.
I thought the application back there clearly listed all three buildings.
As a complex. It was combined as a complex.
And the activity building was originally built when?
The activity building was originally built in 1939, and then the addition was in 1971.
And so how would you consider that non-contributing if it was built in 1930? Our guidelines say anything over 50 years old is contributing. So I'm unclear as to how you find that out. You know, you come to that conclusion.
Okay. Well, we would like for it to be removed from the landmark status.
Okay. But to non-contributing.
Correct.
Even though it's against the guidelines to do that.
We would just like for it to be removed from the landmark status.
Okay. So that's different from what the application says?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm just throwing out ideas here, okay? If the board, and I don't know that they would because I'm not the board, if the board was to find that it was appropriate to divide and to take the word complex out, but yet have three landmark buildings unassociated, you know, would that still meet the goal of the church? Mm-hmm. If the landmark building could be moved, like you said on page 7.
You're asking if the board would just take the
complex
wording out.
Right,
and
but had 3 individual landmarks. Would that work, Rebecca? I really don't know. I guess I hate to put you in the spot asking you if that would work, because
I think, and Kimberly, please don't let me put words in your mouth. I think their ultimate goal is to have the parsonage relocated.
Right.
So I guess that comes back to the issue that they were unsure if a landmark would be permitted to be relocated, which started their inquiry into the whole designation.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what did we determine about that? If a landmark could be moved across the street or not?
That's a determination that the board
of this board.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
And would that be the board, because we're not changing?
Mm-hmm. Well, we would only make a recommendation, right, Rebecca?
Yeah, any decision you make concerning changing the designation would be a recommendation to City Council.
But I think Barbara's question is, and I'm just trying to clarify, is would the relocation would not have to go to, decision would not have to go to City Council?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. I think that was the question you were asking.
That was good, because I didn't catch that.
Yeah, could you repeat that?
2 parts. So the separation, if we separate it, Ben's solution, 3 separate landmark structures. That designation of separating it has to go to City Council.
That's correct.
Once City Council does that, then the movement of a landmark would come back to just us.
Back to us.
But not have to go to council.
That's correct.
Two-step process. It's 2-step.
Right.
And then we haven't talked about what they might be doing with the other building.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then we could look at, I'm concerned about making it non-contributing and making it, my concern, given it's got some historical significance, even though it's been added to. So I think that's might be a very creative way to deal with it.
Well, I mean, we're just trying to come up with solutions here. You know, I think, I for myself, I'm fully in supportive of trying to accomplish the church's goals, but I also want to do the right thing too, you know, so trying to find a way we can do all of that, you know.
So that I'm clear, I want to make sure that I'm clear what you're saying. You're saying take the complex and debundle it,
Right.
separate it into 3 different structures.
Yeah.
And
landmark-
there's
three different
3
landmarks.
different landmark structures that have the landmark status.
Right.
That action will be made through what?
A recommendation,
To
if
the-
we voted, we would recommend to city council, and city council would have to approve that. We can't approve that.
I understand.
We can only recommend that.
I understand. And once, let's just say, city council approves that,
Right.
then at that time, we can take one of the structures, if we choose, take one of the structures and come back to this body to get any approvals for relocation.
Right. That was just my idea. That doesn't mean it's legal.
I mean, it's keeping the designation.
Right.
I think we go back to the why, you know, like what happens with that? In my mind, it allows us as a design review board to look at what you're doing with the movement and how do we protect that status. It might give us a little more.
Because we plan to preserve. Our whole intent is to preserve. We recognize the significance of it,
Right.
and as we talked about in the site visit,
Right.
and we plan to, and it plans to be preserved. So that intent is still there.
Yep.
There
And
is-
we agree with that goal.
There is an issue with relocation of a landmark.
Okay.
Right, I knew
It
that.
will not be approved unless it is threatened by a circumstance, such as a highway widening that is entirely out of the owner's control. So I don't think a landmark designation of the singular building would work with our guidelines for relocation.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Nor can any of them be demolished at any time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, can I also make ask this question? It was brought up in the work session about St. Mary's Catholic Church. They had a similar situation. I would like to ask, what is the difference with what they encountered to what we are experiencing now? Because they asked for their landmark status to be removed, and we're doing the same thing.
I'm not aware of that. Does anybody have the history on that?
And I recognize that was several design review boards ago, but it's the same. It was the same issue where they asked for their landmark status to be removed also, and as you can tell, they were granted that.
I would have to look back at the file to make sure I give you all the correct facts, but I believe a portion of their complex was removed from a landmark designation at one point. So I can do more research on that and get back to you all if you'd like me to do that.
I mean, we could separate it out and do landmark and then contributing for the other 2 buildings.
That is an option. Yeah.
And with contributing, it can still be relocated. We can apply for relocation.
Right.
Madam Chairman, I think that would be the answer to be able to give the applicant what they're requesting and still keep everything in order, and especially the as it reflects the designation. If it's 50 years or more, it has to be, at minimum, has to be a contributing.
Right.
So would we, under this new idea, would we still hear the relocation application at a later date separately?
Yes, because it's contributing.
Yes.
And all we would be doing is recommending to city council to change 2 of the buildings to contributing.
And debundle.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Would that work?
I certainly hope so. But yes, it would work.
Okay. Good. We just want to make sure that we're following the letter.
I totally
of
understand.
What your intent is.
I totally
and
understand
still
that.
keeping compliance with what we're faced with. Like Barbara said earlier today, we want to make sure that we're following everything so that at some point in time in the future, you don't end up with an issue that you have to deal with that we didn't deal with on the front end. So
Right. I understand.
that makes sense.
It does.
Is there a motion for a recommendation? Public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment.
I just asked you a question about, it was the part, it's the activity building that we're talking about right now. All right. What, weren't you planning to demolish that and then
No.
put a larger building there?
We never had any plans to demolish any buildings.
Okay, you didn't. All right, so that's good to know. But you decided you wanted it non-contributing. Is there any other reason you decided you wanted it non-contributing?
The main thing was just to take that out of the landmark status, and it wasn't as far as I guess the term non-contributing might not have been used, should have been used. The fact that the historical significance and the fact that it was not on the historical register, such as the sanctuary, that's the main reason why.
Okay, and you're planning on putting a larger building there, are you not?
And with the hopes that we are approved for the relocation of the parsonage, we plan to put a larger administrative building and a larger facility on our campus near the footprint of the parsonage.
So you're not planning on putting a larger building near the footprint of the activity?
No.
You just okay. All right. That makes a big difference.
Yes.
I didn't understand that originally. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So just as a heads up, if you do come back with a new construction request in the future, however many years that is, I would be very concerned of what that building would look like next to a landmark. Mm-hmm. So I think you want to think, I hate to use the word complex, but think about the complex and the way they fit together. If you ever come with a new building, you want to be very careful about how it's designed. Okay.
And as we're working in that process now, we definitely keep that in mind, and we discuss that all the time.
Great.
Thank you.
And if we do decouple these buildings and that the building is relocated, would we be reviewing the new design?
Yes, so it would have a designation, so any new build would have to come back to you all.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any public comment? Yes?
My name is Sharon White, and I live at 2923 Tennessee Lane in Aiken. I come before you asking that you carefully review the amended designation for the Friendship Baptist Church. And if you have to, consult with an attorney, because you said this might be the first time this has ever happened, that you do that if you're not sure of the decision that you make. Last year, I reached out to State Historical Preservation Office in Columbia, Mr. Brad Sauls, the supervisor of registration and grants. And I, was trying to get the whole 3 complex on the National Historical Register. He has informed me that it's up to the city to decide if this doesn't go through. He will be there to help me if we do that. We were looking at preservation as far as the buildings were concerned and trying to preserve them, to keep them there. An application was submitted on April the 2nd to you to move the building by a contractor, which some of the members were not aware of. We know it was going to be moved, but they didn't realize that the status of the building was historical. So that application had to be pulled from you and then brought back to the congregation so they could know exactly what was going on. Now, another application was put in as far as to downgrade the building so that this could happen. And evidently, they added the activity building. So now that they're unable to move these buildings, this is why they want to downgrade them to non-historical and contributing buildings. I feel that preservation is the first thing that we should be looking at, you know, as far as preserving these buildings, trying to preserve it. And as Ms. Barbara said, it brings character to the neighborhood as far as what these buildings are. When you start pulling from it, you know, you're taking away the character of the whole building and the community. Making the activity building a non-contributing building which carries no weight at all, just only building lost to the historical site. You know, now on the activity building, it's concreted back in 1939, quote, dedicated to kingdom building. Now, if that's not trying to build the complex and build it, I don't know what is. Why would you want to downgrade it if they've been building it ever since 1939? This would be just another building that would have to be held to the historical rules and guidelines for preservation with less restrictions and responsibilities. And that's what it's all about, responsibilities and preserving these buildings. As a member of the church at that time, I was responsible as a trustee to manage the assets of the church complex, address conflicts of interest, and dissolve them to the people involved, taking appropriate steps to resolve them. I get a letter, mail letter from the pastor, putting it bluntly, to tell me to immediately to be quiet, to shut up. And I'm not to talk about this to anyone. And I feel that it's my responsibility to do that, to state it, and that everything should come out as far as what is being done. The congregation is being told as far as designation. I mean, what does that mean? You know, if you don't explain something to people, you're saying you're moving it. I mean, what does that mean? You got to let them know the specifics and everything. Now, as far as the the first application, this building was being given away, you might as well say. I don't know if by moving it as a landmark, they do what they're going to do and everything. Will we still own it? Because we're not going to own it if we, what you say we're going to do. I mean, if you're going to give it away, whoever owns it is going to be able to do whatever they want to do with it, because they're going to be not going by the guidelines of the your guidelines. So it's just, I feel that it just should be given away, and you know, we just should preserve it.
Thank you. The 5 minutes is up. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I want to add, Ms. White, I appreciate you getting up and speaking, because I think the board echoes your concerns. We have the same goals that you do. So, you know, in terms of preserving and protecting. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is, I'm T.C. Edwards. I am the pastor of Friendship Baptist Church. I'm bivocational. I also work at the Savannah Riverside as an employee concerns investigator with 37 years of service. I just want to share the church, the sanctuary, was historic before the parsonage or the activity building was ever put on the local register, I believe it was 94. somewhere around that time. So the sanctuary by itself was already historic. So we're not trying to do anything with the sanctuary. And looking at this house, which was a parsonage, has not been used as a parsonage for well over 40-something years. No work has been done to that parsonage probably in the last 60 years. Maybe we did put a roof on it because it was just raining in it. Other than that, when I arrived in 2005, it was made clear to me that the church would not put any more money into that facility, and the church has not. A plan was put in place called the 2020 vision, and the goal was to buy new properties because at that time, the church was landlocked. It only owned what was on the corner. Now the church has acquired more property, and the goal was to build a multi-purpose facility. Presently at Friendship Baptist Church, we have no handicap accessibility in none of the facilities. They're dated. They don't even meet the codes of today. We're trying to do ministry. We have many ministries that we do in the community, and the parsonage does not serve the present age and what we need. We looked at it as a church, and the options were, can we demolish it? You know, that was brought up. What about renovating it or moving it? And we came to the conclusion if we could get it moved where someone would actually use it, it would be used for what Mr. Graham built it for, someone to live in it. I'm sure if he could come out of the grave, he would be pleased to know that someone is living in a building that he built as a home. No one has lived in it as a parsonage well over 40-something years. Friendship Baptist Church is a congregational driven church. We're not AME, we're not United Methodist, we're not CME. We do not preside upon a bishop. We're self-governed, majority rules, and the church as a whole voted to remove the parsonage in order that we may build a new multi-purpose facility in place where it is right now. As far as the activity building, the plan is to renovate that building. So we're not going to demolish that building. We're going to keep it. But at this time, as I said, we don't have any of the updated facilities that you would need in trying to serve the present age with the ministries that we have. I mean, as I said, there are no handicap accessibility to any of the restrooms in any of the facilities. So the church voted as a whole. It was brought before the church. The church made the decision to move forward. The plan with the 2020 was once we purchased the properties, pay for them first because we didn't want any mortgages on them. Then we would move forward. Well, COVID hit. When COVID hit, we had paid off all the mortgages. So we set for about, 3 years? And now we're back at moving forward. And so what we're doing is trying to continue to do ministry in an area that needs ministry. We have many ministries, and with the new facility, it will help us serve the present age. Now, I'm going to say this, I'm not here to bring out church business, but I never told anybody not to speak on anything. Yes, someone was removed as a trustee in the church due to some actions that were taken when you all visited us, and I think it was brought up that a lawyer was being involved. I get a call from the city. I get a call from the city administrator. I know anything about a lawyer, but when you go out and don't be truthful, and it was shared with this group that the church had a lawyer as if though there was a clash. When we voted, we had 2 members to vote against the project. Also, I know you all, my time is about up with these letters that people are writing in saying that they're members of the church. I can shoot off 50 letters and put concerned members from Friendship Baptist Church on them and send them to you. I think if anybody's going to send a letter, whether it's for us or any other group that you're dealing with, person should put their name on the letter and not just fabricate letters and send them in and say concerned members of Friendship Baptist Church. I know my time is up. I'm a little over. Thank you all.
Can I ask a question to the pastor?
Yes.
Pastor, you and I talked
Yes.
when we were all there together,
Yes.
and just to reiterate what you just said, this whole process is is nothing more than twofold: to preserve what you have, and to develop and have an area where you can minister in a more productive way, in a modern way, to the community.
Yes.
Is that
That's correct. That's correct. We cannot do that with
right?
the parsonage would not serve the present age for what we're trying to do. Questions may be asked why we're not putting it on the property that we purchased. Well, I can answer that question for you too. From a business standpoint, it does not make sense to tie up all of your properties.
But you are landlocked, so you now have some opportunity.
We have some opportunities,
Good.
so we can build, and plus we have an older congregation. They don't have to walk all the way over there, and those new properties would not be tied up with the lien once we build the new building. Right. So it was a business decision as to not to put the new facility over on the property that we've already purchased.
And to do it in an economic process that makes sense for the congregation.
Yes. We don't have the money to, it's taken us almost 20 years. I've been there come January, 20 years. We started this in, 2005. And so everything that we laid out as a church that we decided to do from that point, we have done. And so it was known from that time on. So you can look at in the last 60 years or more, nothing has ever been done to the parsonage other than a roof. So the intent was never to restore it because the church just didn't have the money. But now we're ready to build, and we want to build right at that spot. It was presented to the church. We're a Baptist church, okay? We're congregational driven, majority ruled.
You're autonomous.
Thank you.
And you're under your own dictates.
Yes.
There's no other governing authority.
There's no other governing body. No, it's not. The church body owns all the facilities.
Okay. And you did have just to reiterate, you had a vote and you only had 2 negative votes.
Correct. We had a vote with the leadership team and the Baptist church, and ours is the deacons and the trustees.
Yeah, and you had a proper notification as according
2 weeks notice.
According to the bylaws. I just wanted to get that in the minutes.
So we have a couple of disgruntled members. One former member that spoke tonight, no longer a member of the church. Okay. But you can't take it upon yourself to try to force a group of folks who have come together and voted according to the guidelines that we are governed by to move forward in this manner.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
There's other people that wanted to speak. Thank you. Yeah, Linda? Yeah.
Hi again. Linda Johnson, 515 Parkside Drive. First of all, do you all know that Friendship Baptist was the first black church in Aiken after the Civil War? Right after the Civil War. Not just church building, but church congregation. It's a really important church. So obviously the sanctuary is very important. I think everyone recognizes that. The parsonage is also really important. Not just because of its association with the church, but because its association with the Schofield School. It was built by people from there. And as Mandy's always telling me, it's a great example of arts and crafts style in Aiken. So it's got a lot of important things about it. So a redesignation could be fine. Interesting idea to break up the complex and have 3 properties and keep the parsonage as landmark. Just a caution that landmarks, I think Rebecca read this off, that changes to landmarks should usually be avoided. And I would think moving the location might be considered that, but that's really up to you given the situation. I do want to talk about the activity building. Originally, what I heard was, yeah, it's built in 1939, but it had this big addition in 1977 and changed enough that it wouldn't be eligible to be contributing. Some of you were on the site tour where we went out, and actually the front half of the activities center is still intact and has a lot of really cool features. You know, the additions on the back. So my opinion is that it's not a non-contributing, it definitely is a contributing structure. Now, I know they're not planning to really mess with it anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter, but I think it is more than non-contributing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Linda?
Yep. Can you?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking at the original ordinance, and I might be too focused, on the details of it, but it concerns me that it was, the church at the time requested that it be, I believe, be designated as a complex, and the wording is, whereas the City of Aiken Historic Preservation Commission, that dates this, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And the Planning Commission both have voted to recommend to City Council that the Friendship African Baptist Church complex located at blah, 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 be designated as a landmark because, among other things, the property is significant. And it was like the complex, the whole complex, all three buildings were significant. I brought that up at the work session, and you mentioned that really wasn't important.
Well,
because
yeah,
they
not
all
that
could
it's not
be-
important.
They all could be
Yeah.
designated separately.
I noticed in their designation package, though, they talked a lot about the history of the church itself and didn't really talk about the parsonage or activity center other than to say they were built.
Okay, that's what I'm getting. This is
Which-
what I want to know.
So I have no idea why they wanted the whole complex. If they were thinking that like the literal property, the property boundaries were kind of part of the landmark. But it struck me that had to dig up the information about the parsonage because it wasn't in the original designation package. And they've done a great job of getting the history, and it's in their book now. So, anything else?
Yeah. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Linda. So, I'd like to get your opinion on something because I know you are very passionate about history of Aiken, and I appreciate that and respect that. Something was said by the last speaker, the pastor, about the no intention to maintain the parsonage in any respect. Putting words in your mouth, so forgive me. But when I hear something like that, it kind of like, oh my goodness, we've got a landmark or at least a continuing property, depending on how we vote or recommend. And I'm thinking that if this was a private homeowner, we would start talking about demolition by neglect. I don't think the city's ever going to be foolish enough to do that in this case. But it still raises a concern that we really need someone to care for this very important property. So I would like to get your view on, would you rather see it be protected across the street or to maintain its current landmark status? If that's your choice,
Ooh. Can I say?
That's a loaded question, I know.
Yeah, can I take the fifth? Is there a fifth thing in our
Do that.
guidelines
You can
someplace,
say, I don't want
please?
to comment, yeah.
I want to see it protected, preserved, and used.
Right.
A historic building that's empty is sad. I look at the Hotel Aiken every day and I
Right.
think sad. So I think it getting used, ideal world, someone gives Friendship a bunch of money. They can fix up the parsonage there and add on to it to do all the stuff that they need to do. I challenge someone to find that money for them because I also think that the church having a viable ministry is really, really important.
Of course.
So I totally didn't answer your question, and I'm not going to.
I'm okay with
Good
that.
job.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I thought I would try.
Anyone else from the? Yes? I wanted to give other people a chance, yeah.
Of course, my phone died with a couple of my things I wanted to say. Again, my name's Mandy Drumming. I 412 Pendleton Street. I am a decorative arts and design historian, as I said before. I've been writing about the architecture, because again, when I said I came here and looked at things after school, they didn't look like what I was being told they were supposed to represent. So I've been looking at Aiken Winter Colony architecture. I've looking at the story of the Schofield, and then Parsonage recently, because I didn't even know about it, right? I didn't even know anything about Parsonage too much, about First Baptist Church. Well, when I started to look at Parsonage, and regardless of whatever decision is made here, I would very much like to do a PowerPoint presentation or lecture of the significance of the arts and craft movement, how the parsonage represents that on the outside, inside, how that is connected with the Friendship Baptist Church in itself, how it's connected to Schofield. I don't know. It's been told, it's only been said by Miss McGee that, Edinburgh, Mr. Graham and Schofield boys built the school. But if you look at Schofield School, which is very much arts and craft movement oriented school, supported by Aiken Winter colonists, Miss Martha Schofield is a Quaker, founded the school, and when it became a normal industrial school, it was extremely popular. It was what actually lured Aiken winter colonists to Aiken. It says one of these wonderful books, but like no one knows this story. None of it is known. But the parsonage, I've been looking at its architectural details. It's this wonderful arts and craft movement, 1.5 with its dormers. It's this exposed rafters. And I don't know if anyone even knows about the arts and craft story. Again, it was this reaction to industrialization, its issues. People from the Northeast, very educated, not just wealthy, but came down, wanted to live this more of a real life in nature and more simplistic, more authentic, more handicraft, not this cheap stuff that was coming off mass machine, produced. They wanted hand craftsmanship, local hand craftsmanship from communities that had been here for a long time. So I think that's why the Schofield they did the bill for the hotels. Some of the wealthiest winter colonists bought materials from them. Again, none of this is told. So there's no doubt that building is arts and crafts style. I don't know how many in Aiken look like that. None. I don't know how many were built by Black craftsman Schofield professor and students and designed by them. And we know this is the design because there's an article that says the arch in the Friendship Baptist Church that was built was by Edinburgh Graham. They give him credit for it. That arch, it's a segmented arch, is in the fireplace mantles, and it's in the porch. So, and that arch in Friendship Baptist Church came after the building itself, parsonage was built. So there's this dialogue. And that's the thing I think we forget about with Aiken and diluting the story, right? When we dilute and move, and truths are untold. So here's this wonderful story about, these craftsmen that were being desired and for their, and I mean, the McGee's built a lot of buildings from, how, that's not told. There's a lot of cons if you move the building, but I know my time is almost up. I know if you move the building, it can't be very hard to get on the National Register of Historic Places. Therefore, it won't get any grants. Some certain grants that has to be on the register. Won't get historic tax credits if it's ever profit seeking. I think the interior can be demolished, so all that woodwork, that craft that represents, that's in the church and on the outside of the parsonage could be destroyed, because I don't know how there's going to be any protection for the parsonage, but because it's arts and craft movement, that is it's so profitable right now, that scholarship. They have a conference every year in Asheville. They wanted us to bring from out of school objects with McGee pictures of architecture and have exhibit there. So easily it would be to be Schofield and images of parsonage and what they did there. So that's advertisement. So you could also do, I know Old House Magazine, they had editors there. I went there because I went to the conference, spoke. Very interested in the story of Aiken. So again, and there's so much wealth with the arts and craft movement. There's tours, and people pay hundreds of dollars to come to symposium about arts and craft movement. Come to Aiken. And that's another problem. The arts and craft movement is prolific in, again, all these quadrants, but the Southeast. Why do you think that is? In the Southeast, no one knows about it. It was a very forward-thinking moving by drawing from the past. So these are just things to think about. if you need any help with, creating a symposium about the Worth, about arts and craft movement, lectures, anything like that, I would love to help. I'd love to give a PowerPoint presentation for your congregation. Just know your worth and value in this that's been overlooked for way too long, and its connection to everyone else. And it was actually here, not way here. It's been totally under represented by historians.
Thank you. Anyone else? She does bring up a good issue, which is if it's not landmarked, the interior is not protected.
And I think Mandy was right to point out that there are lots of organizations that will help you maintain landmark, but you have to be the landmark to get all these funds and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Would like to speak. Oh, good.
Good evening. W. Flip Quill is my name. I'm the chairman of Deacon at the Friendship Baptist Church. And Friendship, I've been at Friendship for 44 years, 49 years. I married my wife 49 years ago, come November, and I've been a member of Friendship ever since. And I enjoy fellowshipping and worshiping God at Friendship. In the last 20 years, Friendship has really grown in size, spirituality, and everything. Now, how Friendship is connected to Schofield, there are many, many people that was graduates from Schofield that was members at Friendship who has passed and gone, and there are still many members at Friendship from Schofield. Now, we are connected to Schofield in many different ways through membership and all. Now, to say what I really need to say, we're asking that the building be moved and it be restored. Like Pastor Edwards said, the man that built the parsonage would really be joy for someone to really live in that parsonage, that house again. Not the parsonage, but the house. So we're asking that in the future, the parsonage be granted to be removed and moved to another spot so it can serve its purpose. We're not asking for demolition of it, not whatsoever. We're just asking for a removal right across the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm James Gallman. I've been a member of Friendship Baptist Church for 70 years. I've served as a member of the trustee board. Still am a member of the trustee board. Our pastor said to you, recently we made a decision that we were not going to spend any more money on a building that, yes, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we put a roof on, but now when you look at what's up under there, it is just no way that we should or want to. Our membership voted that we needed to do something with that building, and we have a good opportunity to continue to have the building. But for us to continue to put money on it is not in the best interest of what we are trying to do. And I would encourage you to please consider allowing us the opportunity to move that building. And there are some other things that we will do, but please don't get hung up on all of the look like we want to give ours away. We're not trying to give it away. We're trying to make the entire land that we have, our entire campus, much more effective and for a better use. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question? Mr. Gallman?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
No. Go right ahead.
No, you can't. No, my concern is one of the topics we're talking about, James, is the beauty of the house inside.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all we're in this predicament again. We love our predicaments, but landmark status, because there's so much history in the interior of that home, we'd like to protect it. I think I'm not speaking for the board, just me, but I think there's a concern for that. So I'm not sure if we can move it. I've read what was mentioned that we might not be able to, but I think we could if it's some kind of beyond your control. That somehow, if we'd like to protect the interior as well as the exterior.
And we would too, and that's one of the reasons that we've talked about having someone, it may be moved from that current location, but it doesn't have to be destroyed just because you move it. And so we think that that can happen, but it certainly doesn't make sense for us to continue to put money in it when it's just not.
It's not meeting your
economically.
mission, what
Yeah.
you all as a church
That's
want
exactly
to do.
right. Yep.
But we as a board are concerned of what we as a community can do for that building, both externally and internally. And so it's never what we do, it's how we do it. You and I.
And I understand, but again, like I said, it does not mean that because it gets moved, then that we're going to lose all of the interior or anything like that. We're saying that that could be done, and then all of a sudden, hopefully, we're looking at a building fund that we're going to have, and we are looking at what else can be placed there again or in that spot and whatnot. Because to put any more money in it, it's like just throwing money down in a deep
It's
hole.
not meeting what you all as a church want to do.
And the church membership voted that that's what we wanted to do. That's all we asking.
We're trying to let you appreciate what our concern about the interior of that building and protecting it too. Thank you, James.
Madam Chair, sorry, if I could just clarify for the board, you're talking a lot about the interior of the landmark structure. And currently, outside of receiving tax credits, the interior of a landmark is only included in this board's review if it's specified in the designating ordinance, which I don't believe it currently is. So if there were preservation zones that you all wanted to have to come before this board, such as the fireplaces or whatever aspect, that's something that would need to be clarified in the ordinance.
I'm glad you brought that up.
That's what
I have a question
yeah.
about that, so I'm glad you brought that up.
That's where I was
So,
going.
if this property was moved to contributing status, and if it was relocated across the street, could the future owner apply for a tax credit on this property, and then it would bring those interior features under our purview? Or if it's moved, that's outside of the tax credit? Right.
So for our local tax credit, contributing properties that I believe are 50 years or older do qualify. And in that instance, you would have purview over the interior of the structure.
If the owner brought it and it applied for the tax credits and all.
That's right.
I just a question. Just a question.
The property across the street where they plan to move it, that is or is not owned by the church. It is not. But it would be a new owner. But you said that you have plans to move it across the street. They did say they had plans to move it across the street, but they don't own the property.
I think what happened was back in April, if I'm not mistaken, April 2024, there was a application to relocate the parsonage, and it was discovered that it was that the designation landmark status came into play. Before that, the church submitted to the city that we approved for the applicant at that time to relocate the building, to relocate the parsonage. So we found out about the designation amendment. We applied, and then we've now been, I think, 3 or 4 iterations later to where we are now.
But, all right, so who owns it? So I guess what's confusing me is how can you move it to a site where you don't own? Do you have permission from that owner?
once we find out that we can't, once we have the ruling of what we're here for today, then we can make transactions that we're intending to do. If I'm making any sense.
No, but you don't own that property. So what I'm saying is there a pardon me?
No, right.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They're selling the parsonage. Okay, and so, and it's going to be moved across the street. Okay. You knew what, with the
At the corner of Richland and Kershaw.
Yeah, but it would still contain the, if we so voted, the contributing status.
Right.
Even though ownership has changed, correct?
I believe that would be up to the board at the time, whenever y'all determine if you're gonna relocate it, you know, y'all would have to talk about that designation, I believe.
Well, I mean, the designation follows the structure, it doesn't follow the owner.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Contributing designation, doesn't matter who owns it.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that was the part of the point, I think, that Pat was trying to make as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Or is there another person in the, no? Okay.
And because it is sold on my character, I can submit to you the letter that was sent to me telling me to be quiet immediately from the pastor. Okay, he said he didn't say it. If you would like, I can submit the letter that he signed and sent to me in the mail that he said that. All right, and as far as activity building, there will be construction next to the activity building if there is a new building built. And as far as the preservation, it's not about the money. I mean, they got the money. They told you they paid off everything and everything. They have the money to preserve it and to preserve these buildings and keep them up. You know, just use the money you have and preserve them, you know. So I just say, if you need the letter to protect my character, I can submit you the letter that he sent to me in the mail, signed, as far as bluntly telling me to be quiet.
Anyone else? I have to give you your second say.
This shouldn't even play out in the video, but to be lied on. I've never told anybody to shut up. I can give you a copy of the letter. Matter of fact, the letter basically just told her that she was being removed as a trustee of the Friendship Baptist Church, that she would not speak on behalf of the trustee ministry of Friendship Baptist Church. That's not telling somebody to shut up. It's just saying you cannot go out and represent the church as a trustee. That is what the letter said, and we have the letter in the church office. I just can't sit here and watch someone stand here and tell a lie that I told somebody to shut up. That did not happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion from the board for a recommendation to City Council of whether to keep this property as it stands, or we separate it into 3 separate properties with different designations.
I'd like to make a motion. This is the first time I've gone through any of this paperwork, okay? And so we've had a lot of conversations. We have a lot of concerns. We've had different people propose different ideas. I really think we don't need to vote on this tonight. I think we need to have some time to think about this before we take it to a vote. I think we need to table this for this meeting.
Is that a motion to table?
Well, I'm just saying that's what I think we need to do. If the board's not against that, I will make that motion.
Yeah, can I?
Mm-hmm.
A continuance or whatever, I just.
Yeah, I say something, I was about to say something like that as well. I said in the work session that this property has so much historic significance. I think it deserves at least a continuance or a postponement to allow us as a board to look into what our obligations are under a situation like this a little more thoroughly. Because I think you talk about historic significance, it has that. On the other hand, I completely understand the concerns of the church and their need to grow, and their need to grow, and work with, work with their congregation accordingly. And so I think that we really need to look a little more through that, and I would like to do some legal research and maybe get some direction about how to go forward on that, and that would give more time to
Yeah.
We could
do a little research on that.
Yeah, and we could seek legal advice.
And to seek legal advice. Thank
I
you.
I agree. I think we need to flush out what the options to debundle, to how to protect it internally and externally, and significance for even if somebody moves it, whether they would be able to get tax credits and benefits from it. There's a lot to educate all of us about.
And that would be very beneficial to the friendship.
To friendship too.
Because
It helps.
Yeah.
So I second Mr. Ben's motion
Made it?
to continue it.
Are we, continue?
Yeah,
So it'd be
continue it.
continuance. So I will make the motion officially to continue this, at least until the next meeting. And I would ask that staff go through the meeting minutes and try to give us a report on the different things that were discussed here tonight and the pros and cons of those different options, so that we can make a better informed decision.
Before we take a vote, Madam Chairman, if we send it forward like we have it now, the same set of questions are gonna be directed back to someone within the city. The council is not, is gonna want these answers as well as us. So I think even though this is postponing it a little bit, I think that having everything together when we put a recommendation and send it to council, that they will feel like that it's been justly served by review and recommendations that are rock solid.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know any other way to put it. So,
And so they can act
so
expeditiously.
I support the amendment, or the motion.
Do you second that?
I second.
Oh, okay, great. Then all in favor for a continuance motion? No deny. Motion moved. Thank you. We did talk about a motion for an executive.
Motion, Madam
But-
Chairman.
We could also, I'm wondering if we should change that to our site visit time. Is that a possibility, or do you want to do it tonight? Past my bedtime.
Tell me the site visit. I knew, what is the site visit?
August 22nd.
Rebecca sent an email.
This coming Thursday, a week from today, there's a site visit at the stables on Lawrence Street, adjacent to 525 Lawrence.
Yes.
Yeah, we're at 9 o'clock now.
If y'all want to do it then.
You want to do it then?
Fine with me.
Then, meeting adjourned.